5 months ago, I walked away from my six-figure career to pursue hockey development full-time. Here are the top 5 lessons I've learned during that process. Stick around for the end, I've got a bonus for the sixth. Number one, not everyone who claims to be a high performer is a high performer. And I've learned that through many, honestly, thousands of conversations with athletes and their parents. The thing is, with the world we live in, it's easy to make empty claims. But where a lot of players get stuck and go wrong is that they set their goals because they think that those goals are what they want. But what they're detached from is the level of effort required to actually reach those goals. And where it gets a bit delusional is that players think they can have the goals without the process to get them. They want the result without the effort. Because so many other things that we have in this world come with such little effort. Think of all the conveniences we have at our disposal. I mean, the device that you're watching this on right now gives you 90% of what you need in life. Like it can provide you food, send groceries to your door, order food for you, right? You can communicate with others. You can learn virtually anything at the type of thumb. So when it comes to developing a craft, like working in a sport, or developing leadership skills, or communication skills, or systematizing proper habits, those are things that are very difficult for today's youth and teens, when so much of everything else in their life is just snap of a finger. Again, it's easy to say that we have big goals because people associate the goal with the status of having achieved it simply by just setting the goal. But the most successful players who I've seen start with the goal, learn about the process, try the process, fall in love with the process, almost to the point that they've forgotten about the goal. And when you have that type of detachment from the outcome, that's often when the outcome falls in your lap. The second biggest thing I've learned, tools and resources mean nothing if the person using them isn't shown how to use them properly, right? If we think about a construction example, which is super common, I can give you hammers, tools, saws, chisels, drills, and then say build a house. But if you've never seen a house be built before, if you've never built a house before, right? If you've never even used the tools required to build that house, how can we set the expectation that you'll be able to build a sturdy, beautiful home? It doesn't make sense. We have all the tools at our disposal, infinite things to learn, access to all the information in the world is on the internet, on YouTube. But that information without any kind of structure, that information without any kind of context gets lost, right? But it doesn't stop us from creating the expectation that we should know it all. Right? And the gap between that assumed knowledge, that coach, that parent, assuming the players have everything figured out, and the players not actually having it figured out, it caps their potential. It keeps them small because then they don't feel like they have someone they can ask. Right? It's like a student in class; they're afraid to raise their hand because they feel like they should know the answer. So instead of just giving the players the tools, right, we need to give them the tools and teach them how to use them. And that's something that I figured out the hard way in my own journey. Is I thought, okay, I've spent years trying to figure out what it is that players want, what it is that players need. I'm just going to give everything to them, and then surely they'll be good. Right? But it doesn't work like that. Different players need different things. To use just a high-level example, the player who has trained for many years would feel like it's a waste of time to get feedback and be filming themselves in the gym and do form critiques. Right? But the player who's never really lifted before, that's what they're most focused on, is learning how to move properly in the gym. And the reverse, the player who is 12 years old, 13 years old, they don't really feel pressure yet, they're playing on the highest teams, they don't know what it feels like to run out of time because they feel like they have infinite runway, is going to be very different than the player who's 17, who is aged out of minor hockey, who needs to make a junior team to continue their career, who's battling uncertainty every day, fighting self-doubt, trying to manage this pressure that manifests all the time. These players need different things. So giving everyone everything, just expecting them to figure out what they need, it's kind of unreasonable. As much as tools are important, context and teaching around those tools is just as important. Number 3, connection accelerates everything. This builds on the second point of having a ton of information, not knowing how to use it. It also comes down to trust. How do we find information that we trust? And what I found with athletes that I work with is the quicker we can build that bridge of trust, the quicker we can start to implement radical changes for their performance. Once you have that buy-in, once you have that connection, where I've heard parents say this, like, oh, Kenny said to do it, so I'll do it. Then the potential becomes uncapped. You can fundamentally change behavior, change perception, change identities once you have that trust built. In whatever areas of your journey, in your player's journey, I think it's a great filter to have when you're deciding to work with people is, do I trust this person? Why or why not? Right? And you can use things like you can trust their experience, you can trust their results, you can trust their connection, you can trust their reputation, you can trust how long you've known them, right? Asking all these types of questions, as filters for like who I want developing my player, who I want developing my offspring. And that's where I think a lot of these online training programs, they fall short because there's no trust. It's just, hey, this works, go do it. That'll be $500, please, right? So then it's like, well, how does this work for my situation, right? Am I different, right? Do I have all the equipment? What do I do if I don't have the equipment? Do I just not do it? What if I'm feeling tired? What if I'm lacking motivation? What if I'm like feeling overworked? Do I still just do the program because you told me to, right? So not having that trust, that feedback, that connection, communication, I think hinders progress. Having it, absolutely, is gas on fire. Number 4, this one's gonna be very difficult to hear for some people. Not every parent wants what's best for the kid. We, as parents, we have our own beliefs about what's best for a player. Of course, we're doing our best to protect them, but in doing so, protecting them may also be holding them back. And this manifests in many ways, right? There's the player who says, hey, mom, I'm ready to move away from home. And they're 16, they go, I'm ready to go to boarding school or prep school. I'm ready to be out of the house to start my own journey into manhood or womanhood. And the mom goes, well, no, honey, you should stay home. You should graduate from home. You should stay under my roof so that you're safe. A different angle of it is the parents who say, yes, we support you, but when push comes to shove, they want what's comfortable. They want to support from their own comfort zone. As long as it doesn't become inconvenient with time, money, anything like that, it's like, you have my support. But what does that teach our players? It teaches them that they can only pursue their own goals to the level that they're comfortable, right? If we don't expand ourselves into discomfort as parents, how can we expect our kids, our children, to expand themselves? Right? Leadership starts from the top. So if we only support from places of comfort and convenience, I think it's unreasonable that we can expect differently, we can expect more from our players when they're learning from us as parents. And number 5, last one before the bonus, what I have absolutely seen is that players set massive goals for the distant future. But what they lack and where they fall off is taking that long-term goal, having a medium-term and a short-term goal that support it. And it's the saying that I'm always reminded of is, you need to find more ways to win. How do we win in the meantime? And the loop that I've built in my own head for that is, the more things we can measure, the more ways we have to win, the more ways we have to win, the easier it is to stay with our goals. The more ways we have to stay motivated. And that's why I'm a big advocate for tracking as many things as you can. Even if it doesn't feel like it's a true, like tangible benefit, tracking it for the sake of a streak or checking something off, feeling that sense of accomplishment in the micro, in the daily, it's a massive initiator to really, it catalyzes our motivation and sustains it towards our goals in the long term. And again, if we have more ways to win in the micro, more ways to win in the meantime, That's how we fall in love in the process, to the point that it's like we almost forget about the goals because we get so focused on the micros, the dailies. My encouragement for you is find different ways to track things. And it doesn't have to just be more weight in the gym. It doesn't have to just be more ice times or more goals or more points. It can be number of nights in a row with good sleep or enough sleep, number of days in a row hitting my calorie goal, number of consecutive months that I've gained weight if weight gain's the goal for you, or even smaller habits, like number of days in a row I've submitted my assignments on time, number of weeks I've gone without getting a B on a test. You see how that it can work for any domain of your life, right? Because then it's like, oh man, I'm at 105 weeks straight of not getting a B on a test, and I don't really feel prepared for this one. Now it's not just a test. Now it's 105 weeks. It's over 2 years of preparation and that are now influenced for this test. I'll bet you're going to study hard for that test. And number 6, this is definitely the most personal one. Since I started full-time coaching, I have 100% realized that almost no one else in the industry is pursuing their online coaching or their online development full-time. And it's because it's really flipping hard. All the other coaches that I've seen, they're either working in person, they have another coaching job, whether they're coaching for a team or even or they're advising, or they're still in their own playing careers. I have yet to see another person who is full-time all in on one thing in the hockey space. And it's probably because it's insanely hard. Now, with that, I think that's why there's a lot of distrust. I'm going to go a little bit off topic here, but I think that's why there's a lot of distrust in the industry as a whole, is because a lot of parents put money towards things expecting full-time results from someone who's really only at it part-time. And having that mismatched expectations between investment and outcome, or even investment and expectation, creates tension. Because the person who's part-time, don't get me wrong, I lived it, I was part-time for 2 years. The person who's part-time has no need to prioritize it full-time because they are still safe, stable, and secure from their other forms and streams of income, right? Back to the point of supporting out of comfort and convenience rather than what's best. It's like, it's easy for them to provide the service as long as it's comfortable and convenient. They don't have as much skin in the game to see your athlete succeed. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found these 5 lessons helpful in your own journey. And if you're looking for more structure, more support coming from someone who has lived it and is now committed to it full time, I invite you to book a call with me. The link is in the description below. If you're not ready for that yet, you still want to explore, totally open to it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next video. I'll see you in the next one.